Gardeners often hear about using rice as a soil amendment, but very few stop to ask whether raw rice or cooked rice actually works better. Both forms have the potential to feed soil microbes, yet the speed and efficiency of that process can vary dramatically. In this guide, the focus is not on theory, but on what really happens when rice meets soil biology, and how you can use this knowledge to feed the microbial world under your feet in the fastest way possible. Why rice matters in soil biology. Rice, whether raw or cooked, is essentially stored plant energy in the form of carbohydrates, with a small but valuable amount of proteins and minerals. Soil microbes thrive on accessible carbon sources, and rice can serve as a direct microbial fuel. When broken down, the starches in rice release simple sugars that bacteria and fungi use to multiply. As microbial populations grow, they in turn attract higher organisms like nematodes, protozoa, and eventually earthworms. This creates a living cycle that converts otherwise lifeless soil into a thriving ecosystem. The question becomes not whether rice feeds soil microbes, but which form of rice fuels them at the fastest rate, raw or cooked. How raw rice behaves once buried in soil. Raw rice is dense, dry, and tightly packed with starch granules. Once it enters the soil, microbes first need moisture to soften it and enzymes to break down those starches. This process is slow, often taking weeks before microbial populations can meaningfully access its nutrients. In fact, in cooler or drier soils, raw rice may sit almost unchanged for over a month. While it will eventually feed microbes, the delay can make it less effective for gardeners who want a quick response. Another drawback is that raw rice can attract pests like rodents or ants if left too close to the surface. That means burying it deeper, around 6 to 8 inches, is often necessary to avoid problems. However, this also slows oxygen availability and reduces microbial activity compared to materials closer to the topsoil. Why cooked rice accelerates microbial growth. Cooked rice changes everything. The act of boiling or steaming gelatinizes the starches, swelling them with water and breaking their crystalline structure. What this means for microbes is immediate access to food that requires little energy to digest. Instead of waiting weeks, bacteria can begin feeding within hours of cooked rice being introduced into moist soil. Cooked rice also retains a high water content, creating a microenvironment where bacterial colonies flourish almost instantly. In side-by-side trials, a handful of cooked rice buried shallowly in compost or loose soil begins to show visible fungal growth within 3 to 4 days, while raw rice may not display any obvious signs of activity for 2 weeks or more. This speed is why cooked rice is favored in many microbial farming practices, including natural farming methods where it is used to capture and cultivate indigenous microorganisms. Now, there is, however, a reason gardeners are sometimes a bit cautious with cooked rice. Because it breaks down so quickly, it can generate foul odors if you apply it in large amounts or if it's packed into poorly aerated soils. Anaerobic bacteria, the kinds that thrive without oxygen, will quickly take over if too much cooked rice is buried in compacted ground. This, unfortunately, results in slimy, smelly decomposition that really doesn't benefit your soil at all. The key here is moderation and placement. A fist-sized ball of cooked rice is more than enough for a square foot of garden soil, and it should be buried only about 2 to 3 inches deep to allow for airflow. Mixing the rice with a handful of loose compost, shredded leaves, or even just a sprinkle of dry soil helps balance its moisture and prevent those anaerobic conditions. Done this way, the rice becomes a starter meal for beneficial microbes rather than a swamp for harmful ones. Let's talk a bit about practical ratios and applications for the garden. For small garden beds, 1 cup of cooked rice per 3 to 4 square feet is really sufficient to spark those microbial blooms. It should be distributed in small clumps rather than just one pile. ensuring microbes spread evenly throughout the soil. Covering each clump lightly with mulch or dry soil keeps pests away while still allowing oxygen to flow. If you only have raw rice available, the key is to pre-soak it in water for at least 24 hours before application. This simple step softens the grains, speeds up decomposition, and reduces the lag time microbes usually face. A ratio of 1 cup of pre-soaked raw rice to 5 square feet of soil works well, and mixing it with moist compost ensures it does not just sit inert underground. In larger settings, like compost piles, cooked rice can be used as an activator. Mixing 2 cups of cooked rice into a 3-foot cubic compost heap accelerates microbial activity, especially if you pair it with high-carbon materials like shredded cardboard or straw. The rice provides immediate energy, while the bulkier material keeps the pile aerated. So, which form should you choose for microbial speed? If the goal is microbial speed, cooked rice clearly outperforms raw rice. The transformation from dry starch to gelatinized, water-rich carbohydrates makes it accessible to microbes almost immediately. Raw rice does have its place, especially for slow-release feeding in deeper soils, but for gardeners seeking results in days rather than months, cooked rice is the undeniable winner. By controlling how much you add, where you place it, and what you mix it with, cooked rice can become one of the simplest and cheapest microbial starters in the soil doctor's toolkit. Its ability to trigger visible life within days makes it far more than just kitchen waste. It becomes a true soil amendment that transforms a tired bed into a living ecosystem. Whether you choose raw or cooked rice, the important part is understanding how microbes respond and how to manage that process for maximum benefit. Rice is not a complete fertilizer, but as a microbial food source, it can breathe life into soil that looks dry and tired. Test both methods in small patches of your garden and observe the difference for yourself. If this guide was helpful, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor for more practical, proven gardening methods that bring your soil back to life. And if you know another gardener who could use a quick trick to spark their soil biology, share this with them so they can put it to work in their own beds.